Hey friends, we are fearless. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Frances Young, and we are here on episode 11 with me, myself, and I. There is no guest today, and we even don't have a backstage manager, so we're going to see what we get out of my body today. Welcome. When this gets released, it will be Friday, May 24th. It will be the day after a full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. So what the fuck does that mean? Well, full moons are a release. They are an accumulation of learning and energy and celebration. The interesting thing about this full moon for me personally, to give some personal information about myself, is that something in astrology, something that everyone has that we can read in astrology, is a north node, is a direction, is a destiny where our soul is headed or wants to head. And mine, funny enough, just so happens to be in the sign of Sagittarius. So it's an interesting full circle moment that I have just chosen to start a podcast, just chosen to respond to what the world is putting in front of me as a generator. And here I am 2 months into creating a podcast and all of the beautiful things about it that I've accumulated with my business and myself and my own life trajectory and destiny, that I am choosing to round out my first season with a full circle episode of just myself at a full moon in Sagittarius, and my destiny is in the sign of Sagittarius. That's fucking cool, right? I didn't pre-plan that. So, what are we going to talk about on today's episode? I've got a whole list in front of me. We're going to wrap up the entire season. To give you a recap on why does this podcast exist? If this is the first This Fearless Life podcast episode that you happen to find on the internet or got sent to you by some friend via Instagram, this is why this exists. I am a fitness expert as well as human design nerd. Like I'm a nerd. Let's not go there yet. I have been in the health and wellness space for over 10 years. I'm a certified personal trainer. I know CrossFit. I know kettlebells. I know pre and postnatal. I'm a fascial stretch therapist. I empower any human. I have been a part of a gym. I have been a board owner. I have done a lot of things in the fucking fitness world. Ask me a question about anything. I will probably be able to answer you or direct you to someone who knows the answer. And then I also am really good at this thing called human design. And this podcast is the melding of both of these things. I have always given clients the answer, it depends. When they ask me, what should I eat? Where should I work out? How am I going to get the skinniest? Along came human design into my sphere in 2022. And so we're now in, let's almost say, the middle of 2024 now. I'm 2 years into being the expert of this thing, but yet it feels like my destiny was already laid out well before me with this full moon in Sagittarius about to happen, of being the teacher and being the one who just wants to spread it to everyone. So this podcast is designed to help you embody your it depends. I think that I just really want to wake up at this time today because my body said so, and then I'm going to work out, and then I'm going to work, and then I'm going to do this. I want you to listen to the crazy, fearless things that your body is telling you to do, that nobody else is telling you to do. And if this podcast inspires you to learn about your human design energy type, fucking fantastic. You can go to my website. This week, my new website will not be activated yet, but you can go to www.francisyoungcpt.com. You will find a page, Your Energy. And you can put in some information, and then you're going to get what is called a human design body graph. You can follow along on the things that I'm going to cover about who I talked to in this season and what happened and what the humans in my life and my circle and the people that I happen to connect with that were also strangers to me, what they learned about themselves and what I learned about myself in the process. So, without further ado, let's go back to the beginning. What the fuck happened in 10 episodes? Because that's a lot of podcast episodes. Episode 1 was me talking about my story. That I'm a trainer. I also am a professional dancer. I'm going to be on stage, guys, for the first time in 10 years on Sunday. Also a full circle moment with that Sagittarian full moon energy. Ugh. We won't go down the rabbit hole of how emotional that makes me and the beautiful synchronicities that are happening around that dance show. But episode 1 was me sharing my vulnerability to the world of I kept going down these paths of life of what I thought was meant to be success or the way in which I was listening to others, but yet still listening a little bit to my body. Still ultimately living my design as a generator, but still crashing into poles and crashing into chaos and being like, okay, what now? What now? And I've actually listened to that episode quite a number of times. Apparently, I like the sound of my voice. But why I'm saying that to you is because it's helping me come full circle for this episode. Biggest thing about listening to that podcast so many times and hear myself speak about my own life is that I know that I'm living fearlessly. My soul is expressing itself in its authenticity. Even when I started this podcast, even when I didn't know what I should do next, if I should leave a partner, with whatever decision I was making. My first episode, I talk about that I realized twice in a very short period of time, in 2019 and in 2022, that I was not, in air quotes, headed in the right direction, or that my body was telling me that something was not right. My boxes were not checked in my body of feeling whole, complete, satisfied with what I had in my life. To say something nerdy about generators with regards to human design, we just want to feel satisfied. If we're frustrated, we feel like crap. So there were moments in 2019 when I was full, when I was fulfilled. I know I was. But there was something missing. The something missing was my body trying to tell me, this chapter of life, you've learned enough, honey. Let's move to the next chapter. I've had a lot of trial and error. My profile in human design, for the nerds listening, and if you followed along enough, you would have heard something about profile so far. I have what is called a 1-3 profile. My personality is the teacher. Hopefully you've learned something from my podcast so far, or you've just found it really entertaining. I have to trial and error everything in my life. This podcast, a trial and error. This is the first season. Fuck, I've learned so much about myself in the past 2 months, in the past 10 weeks of releasing all of these episodes and re-listening to them and being like, wow, the people in my life are really cool. Wow, I know what I'm talking about. Generators are on a life master trajectory of the things that they get good at. They don't leave anything behind. I don't have to overthink this thing anymore. This is, So my boxes are checked, and they were checked in 2019 and they were checked in 2022, but we're on a whole new level of filled in, folks, even after another 10 weeks of life. So that's a recap of episode 1. In episode 2, I spoke to Kendra. We started off with generators because I am also a generator. Kendra, I can't wait for you to listen to this episode and you hear me speak about our time. We recorded our podcast in March, and I don't think I've seen you since March. That's okay. Don't worry, honey. The majority of the world population is a generator. So if you are a generator listening to this podcast today, this moment's for you, babe. We talked about how generators deal with conflict. We talked about who generators would jive with. Who are generators designed to collaborate with the best? And we also talked about digestion. And I'm starting to unravel that massive rabbit hole within the human design system. How do generators deal with conflict? Where I went on my tangents was very particular to if the generator is an emotional or a non-emotional. Now, if you are currently looking at your human design graph, please denote if you are an emotional or non-emotional generator. And it will say that very clearly. If you are looking at my personal graph from my website or some other app or some other PDF, it will tell you somewhere about being a non-emotional or an emotional. Emotions in a human body itself is information. It is this added layer of being a human that we love and that we dislike at the same time. As a human, if there is a moment where you start to realize what your emotions mean to you or have a certain level of emotional awareness, regardless of how spiritual that is or whatever, I'm not trying to get preachy in this moment about everyone needs to be emotionally aware. Everyone's on their own journey. But when we look at emotions in regards to human design, someone who is an emotional is going to wake up and be in a mood. Whatever that mood is. Kendra put it beautifully. I'm emo. Kendra, I hope I did your moment of saying that when you said it back in episode 2. Literally. Kendra will wake up and be emotional. If you know in your human design graph that you're a generator or whatever energy type you happen to be and you are an emotional, you're going to wake up in a mood one day, and that's fine. You could know that you're really fucking angry about something, or you just in the depths, or you're somewhere in the middle. That's an emotional tone to your day. You do not have to associate that tone as being something that you need to change, that is wrong about you. Our brain has this weird way of saying, oh, you need to change that so you don't affect everybody around you. Or the world or your parent is saying, no, don't be upset right now because you need to go do this. Pushing away emotions when you are an emotional, being very particular with saying that, an emotional with regards to your human design graph is so important. If I could mic drop right now, I would, but that would destroy my equipment. So I'm not going to. The emotionals in the world with regard to our human design graph energy types are here to show us emotions, to show us what happiness, sadness, excitement, to just say some very basic emotions. They're here to show the non-emotionals what the roller coaster of emotions are. Humans love throwing emotions in each other's faces and projecting emotions out onto others when they aren't aware as to how those emotions may affect somebody else. Now, someone can be emotional if they are emotional generator, if they're an emotional manifesting generator, but the other person in front of them does not need to take on those emotions, does not need to think that they made that person emotional because they probably woke up that way. And that's how they're designed. Now, to go deeper into talking about an emotional and non-emotionals, that's another podcast episode. But that's just my little rant on that moment. To wrap up on digestion and who to collaborate with as a generator. Generators, you are the light. You have one of the most open and embracing auras there are of the humans on the planet. You're naturally just going to draw who you need to you at what moment in your life to collaborate with. Speaking from my own personal experience, knowing when my energy is in its light and it's tapped, I am really trying hard not to question which energy type comes into it, because whoever it is has the gifts that I need in that moment to go to wherever I need next, whatever I need and whatever that energy needs next. Because every human design energy type, every human on the planet is meant to connect with a manifestor in some way, with a manifesting generator in some way, with a reflector in some way. I have fucking connected with a lot of reflectors since doing this podcast. I was at an event where there were 4 reflectors in one day. If anybody's a human design nerd listening to this, in one day, yo, I talked to 4. They're 1% of the population. Okay, stop getting super excited about that was a thing. Generators can collab with anybody. It's just allowing yourself to respond in the moment, listening to your gut and or emotions as to if this human is what I need to respond to right now to make the next moment of my life or the next moment in my work happen. That's who you're meant to collaborate with. On the episode, we went a little deeper than that, but that's the overview. Last but not least, digestion. What we eat, the information that we put in front of our face in a day as a human is, besides how and where we sleep, the biggest conditioner to our bodies and our soul destiny path as to where we're heading and how we listen to what our human design is trying to tell us. Digestion and human design, there's 3 factors that end up being nuggets that someone can look at. There are 4 arrows at the top of a human design graph. The first arrow on the top left represents someone's digestion. Please look at that arrow right now. And if your arrow is pointed to the right, your digestion may be inconsistent. It does not mean that you have a slow metabolism. It means that maybe some days you're going to eat more than other days. It may mean that some days you're actually not hungry until 12 p.m. or later. Then the next day you're going to be hungry and ravenous at 7 a.m. when you wake up. Tried, tested, and true. I personally have a digestion arrow that is pointed to the right. Today, I had breakfast. I think it was at 7:30, maybe, ish. And yesterday was Sunday. I didn't eat breakfast until 2 p.m. Yo. And I was fine. Legitimately fine. So that's cool. But to just side tangent this, to bring a full circle moment, the health and fitness industry, let alone the world, whoever says to us that in order to be fit, in order to be healthy and live an active lifestyle in which we are going to live until we drop dead, however old we're going to live, you need to be consistent when you eat. You need to eat only things that are, in air quotes, healthy, or having, if we look at the Canada Food Guide from X number of years ago, you've got a certain amount of vegetables on your plate, a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of carbs. You're good. Okay, that equals healthy. So why was me eating breakfast today at 7:30 really good for me? And yesterday it didn't matter until 2 p.m. and I'm still healthy? I actually feel really rejuvenated today. Like, it's awesome. Because the human design system hasn't been tested out long enough to say that this is a healthy lifestyle, that this is the way that I'm going to achieve the greatest and best things in my life thus far. There's no pre-manual on this shit, but I'm here testing it out. Anybody that's listening is here testing it out and being like, yeah, this just feels good to me, so I'm going to keep doing this. I don't take out the fact that I know about overall foods that are good for my body. What did I have yesterday for breakfast? I had a Western omelet sandwich. Oh my God, hadn't had that in forever. But I looked at a menu and was like, this thing. Because generators need to see what they want to eat. They are responding with their gut, yes or no. If anybody's not realizing so far, I'm actually dropping lots of human design tidbits and nuggets throughout this entire episode. So, I also had hash browns. Yeah. Today, when I'm at home and I know that I can choose, of course, what's in my fridge, I'm obsessed with fresh bread right now. But gluten's bad for you, right? No. Bread's fine for me. Personally, does not make me bloated, it's totally fine. There are ways in which I love gluten-free things, but bread, if it is fresh, if it is from a bakery, so good. And for a long time now, I've been realizing that toast that is a sweet toast and a savory toast, it's my jam. Typically, peanut butter and banana with honey and cinnamon on one, that's my sweet. And then my savory goes through variations, but typically 1 egg, some lettuce, some sort of green thing, because I love vegetables, but the green thing's got to be lettuce or cucumber or avocado. And that's the other toast. I have my coffee with almond milk because I'm obsessed with that, and water with lemon right now because that's a vibe. And you can see me eating that day in and day out. That's because I have what's called a closed taste in human design digestion. That's the second piece of when you look at your digestion in human design. There will be a particular word or words describing the way in which your body wants to eat. It could say hot food. It could say cold food. It could say closed taste, which is mine. There could be open. There could be direct. There could be indirect. There are a couple other ones. Alternating. Have I forgotten any? It's funny when you try to name them all off the top of your head as a nerd. I think I got most of them. Nervous. Oh, I forgot that one. Nervous. I think that's it. And if I'm missing one, someone can shout out in some form, some way. Anyways, third thing, there will be something within your body that gets stronger when you start eating the way that your body is just trying to tell you how to eat. And to sum it all up on listening to our digestion and our bodies more when it comes to what our human design graph says, if it looks weird to everybody else or how you speak to yourself about the things that you want to eat, that your body is trying to tell you what to do. So you don't even have to listen to me. Listen to your human design graph. Kendra, thank you so much for being the first guest that got released on the This Fearless Life podcast. I love you so much. Episode 2, Janelle. So Janelle Hewlett, pretty sure that's how, Janelle, you say your last name, I don't know. But that's what we're going with. I hadn't seen my girlfriend Janelle in 10 years. She comes and visits me in January of 2024 of this year. She was sitting on my porch before I got home, and our interaction was fucking hilarious. I wish that you could have seen it in person or that we had a recording of it, but I'm listening to music and I'm bopping on the sidewalk, and I walk up to my house and I put down my headphones and everything. I basically gremlin gallop up to Janelle and start laughing at her. And I think I may have somewhat scared Janelle, but because she knew me so well, she didn't care. She just hugged me right back. And we sat down for the rest of the afternoon and talked about her human design. Janelle is a manifester, specifically a splenic. Janelle, we spoke about so many great things on our episode. We talked about fitness. We talked about the cycles of being a manifester and what it feels like to have bursts in your life of energy, whether it's for work, whether it's for how you feel your relationships are changing, how money comes to you, how female hormones change with fitness and life and partners. We spoke about splenic authority the majority of the podcast episodes from season 1 and the authorities that I spoke about with different energies, splenic was pretty high. So in the hit moments of a little voice, if anybody listening to this is a splenic manifester, yo, go listen to that episode, dude. Madam, they, them, whoever you are. Go listen to that episode. Janelle, our episode was really heartwarming because it embodied the moment of we had tea, and all I want for someone to listening to these podcasts is to feel like I'm having tea with them or coffee, or I just met them on the sidewalk and they're like, hey, I just want to know who you are. That's happened to me recently. Then you strike a conversation that changes someone's life. I know that Janelle's life has changed a lot since January of 2024 because she's even more realizing I'm a fucking manifester. I need to use this voice. I'm going to listen to the weird impulses that don't make sense to anyone else. Speak everything I want into the world to inform everyone and to live that bold manifester energy that we are all so addicted to. Like when you see a manifester in their line of, hey, and this is the thing, you fucking want to follow that manifester because it's intoxicatingly incredible. So, Janelle, thank you so much for that episode. If anybody is super curious about understanding female hormones and working out and just letting our body help dictate what workouts we do and not over question our cycles if they seem, in air quotes, a little off, go listen to that one, because that one will help ease your brain on maybe my body's fine if it doesn't have a cycle right now, regardless of the fact if I am on or off birth control or if I am on any other type of hormone stimulant or even potentially ADHD medication. Any other medication could be affecting our cycles and we don't understand why. It could be our design and our body just naturally taking care of itself, and we don't have to change our diet and we don't have to change our exercise. We just have to rest when we need to rest. Or maybe you do need to go to your doctor. It's endless. There's so many different inputs to get a different output these days. Janelle, I miss you so much. Episode 3. Avril, can you just move to Toronto, please? Just move to Toronto. We spoke just before you got on a plane to go home in March. And you knew nothing about human design, but yet I was like, let's just chat. Let's see what you pull out of this thing that is said to be you. And let's see if you jive. We found some things. We talked about you being a gossip. We talked about roadblocks. We talked about sacral center. And we talked about the randomness of being a manifesting generator and what that could potentially even mean. And that even sometimes saying randomness to a manifesting generator, they're like, fuck you. No, my life makes sense. If you're a manifesting generator listening to this, that maybe for some reason just made sense. Episode 4. Trisha, you are the 1% of the population. When I think about this episode with you, it brings me great peace. I feel so privileged. Right now, you're on the journey of a fucking lifetime, and I cannot wait to see you in real life when you get back. Have a safe journey home, by the way. Reflectors are a human that, with regards to their human design, are completely open. Every single center or triangle and square on a reflector's human design body graph is white. So if you're currently looking at your graph and it's all white, ding, you are the winner. You are a reflector. Ooh, ooh. if you've got some colored in centers, you're not. And in the past couple of years with knowing about human design, I really just wanted to know reflectors because I was worried that, oh my God, if a reflector comes into my path and I have to do a reading for them, I'm not going to know what to fucking say because they're so wise. I'm not going to need to say anything to them. My own imposter syndrome complex about reflectors coming out. But then I met Trisha. Funny enough, Trisha and I met through Instagram. I love how all of my things with regards to human design and kind of some very life moving forward moments in the past year, let alone 2 years, have come from Instagram. Shout out to Instagram. Our episode made me realize I need to talk about astrology on my podcast more. It made me realize that we need the very few reflectors of the world to help us embody who we are. And it's okay that you guys move at your own interesting pace because it makes sense to you. And Trisha, if you're listening to this right now, I really hope that you're starting to feel that that's okay, even more than you already were. I think so, but I'm just saying it today anyways, just to see how that feels and lands for you when you listen to this episode. Thank you for asking me about what does it mean at this point in my life, if I look at my human design graph, what's going to come up for me? Reflectors, their body is linked to the lunar cycles. It's another reason why I also started this podcast with talking about the moon. Lunar cycles and a month cycle, roughly 28 to 30 days, a human experiences a lot. In 2 months, I have experienced a fuck ton of what I didn't know was going to happen to me and realizing, hey, I can actually handle all of these crazy things that are happening to me as opposed to feeling like I'm bumping into a million walls because I listen to my energy. And as a reflector, for any reflector listening to this, your energy is so precious and is affected by so much of your environment in your world. Treat it with the utmost love and compassion, even if no one else fucking gets why you're doing what you're doing when you're doing it. Please. Because I've watched that happen with Trisha and seeing her flourish since I have met her. Honey, you're so beautiful. And I can't wait to officially hug you in person at some point this summer. Okay. Episode 5 was Daria. Daria. Where to go about talking about the specialness of you in my heart. I have known Daria since 2021. And Daria, you have the second highest downloaded episode, just so you know. Apparently everybody has things for projectors. Daria is a projector. And projectors are the seers. They are the guides. They analyze everything to the 10th degree because they're supposed to. On Daria's episode, we really went deep about non-emotionals. I went ham at the beginning of this episode about describing what an emotional experience is in human design. And Daria and I went deep on what it's like to be a non-emotional. What is it like to have what I think the sickest joke in human design is that non-emotionals are actually some of the more emotional beings on the planet because our bodies are designed to be empathic in an emotional way, in my mind, sometimes more than someone who could be classified as an emotional or who has their emotional solar plexus within their graph colored in. Now, I've known Daria since 2021, and she started out as a personal training client before I even knew what human design was. One of the coolest parts of this episode was us going down the rabbit hole of her asking me, how did you training me as knowing now what my design was as a projector, how did that change from when we started to now? Not a lot, Daria, because the intuition of what I was doing in 2021 was to follow your energy day to day. However, when I had the context of words and language of knowing your human design type and you being a projector, then we got better at your self-care routine. Then I know that you started to see the way your body operates as a beautiful, holistic package along with your training and along with the rest of your life. That this is how your training and me knowing about human design has evolved and will, again, continue to evolve for the rest of your life, but keep you feeling the most fit and healthy that I know that you ever have. And that will only continue to get better. Thank you for trusting me. And thank you for continuing to come along on this crazy human design training ride with me. Because I know you're going to be my client forever. If you'll have me. Episode 6. Post the first 5 episodes, I started to repeat energies. Then we started to go down rabbit holes that I was definitely nervous about going down on the podcast. I just wanted people to get what we're talking about. And my brain getting in the way of worrying about that whoever's going to find this podcast won't understand talking about the big 3 in astrology or whatever riff I could go down about human design in the moment if I hadn't given any pre-knowledge. And this is where the episodes got even juicier. Even juicier. Vanessa Smith was my next generator on episode 6. She was actually my 5th guest. And throughout releasing all of these podcasts in the past 2 months, which number of who guessed at what time, I had some issues with Mercury retrograde. That's a whole moment. But anyways, I connected with Vanessa Smith in January of this year. I'll tell you the story of how that happened. It was a beautiful universe moment of someone in my life that happened to be a manifester saying, hey, go do this. If you have someone in your life that's a manifester, or you know that they're a manifester, and they say, hey, go do this, and something within your energy changes when they say this thing, go do it. No, seriously, go do it. Because I swear to fucking God, that's how I met Vanessa. Manifester said, put yourself on LinkedIn. I didn't have a current LinkedIn profile at the time. Made one. Took some time. And then I found Vanessa through LinkedIn. She had an open call to be on her podcast. And then all of a sudden, within a few months, I had recorded 2 podcasts to be on Vanessa's podcast. And then Vanessa happened to be a guest on mine. And the magic we created was unbelievable. Funny enough, even though Vanessa and I have never met in person, and she lives on the other side of the world right now, we happen to have the same North Node. Full circle moment. Or at least our North Node is in the same sign, and our degrees are actually quite similar. And how that fucking happens is divine timing and the universe and energy sending us in the directions of listening to, in this case, I listened to the manifester and their voice in the moment of them being them. And then me being me, responding as a generator. It doesn't get cooler than that when you denote what the human design system is and realizing what energy types in your life are what people, what their energy is. God damn, I'm really passionate about how these things work. Vanessa and I talked really particularly about her specific gifts and gates. On any human design graph, and if you're currently looking at yours, you will see that there are 64 numbers. Every human design graph has 64 numbers, and they are always in the same place. 64 will always be in the crown, and 1 will always be in the G center. Whether or not those numbers are colored in is dependent on where the planets are at 2 very particular moments to someone's birthday and their actual time of birth. We're not going to get into that. Go listen to the episode. But We talked about gift number 10. We talked about 35. We talked about the gifts and these nuances about Vanessa that if she tried to describe, hey, I'm super charismatic, we might not say out loud that we're super charismatic, not to sound like somebody might be sounding narcissistic if they say, oh, I'm just so charismatic. But there are attributes about each and every single human on this planet that we're like, oh yeah, that person's just super logical. Human design is really cool at describing the things that we are inherently good at and makes us feel fucking fearless when we realize, oh yeah, I am actually that way. We also talked about a bunch of astrology things. We talked about profile. Vanessa, we went in some really interesting tangents. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. Episode 7. Ada, where would I be without you right now? Ada Pembroke is the founder of the Narrative Astrology Lab. Again, I have never met Ada in person. I have connected with her through the internet, through another beautiful human, Kayla. So many people I haven't met in person these days. And Ada, we went down rabbit holes of astrology. And we also went down rabbit holes of talking about motivation and specifically the 4 transformations in human design. Ada and I, we have such an interesting relationship. I see her as this astrology goddess. That's all I got today, Ada. And weaver of words. Your knowledge is so profound and so calming about how you speak about astrology to your community, to your clients, that I was so honored to have you ask me deep questions that felt tangible to speak in an astrological way, but also in my zone of genius within human design. Ada and the Narrative Astrology Lab has essentially dubbed me their human design resident expert. I host monthly lectures in their lab and community. It has allowed me to realize in another way, besides this podcast, that I'm really good at what I talk about. Ada and I talked about anxiety. That was a really big nugget of our episode. And static energy within the body. What does it mean to feel that you've got anxiety? What does it mean with regards to human design? Because there is language within human design that says for some people that we should be motivated to do things by listening to fear, or our brain is going to give us a fear. And then what does that mean in the body? Like, human design is really fucking deep, people, if you haven't realized so far by listening to this podcast, this particular episode, or all 10 previous. Anxiety is a really big term in today's society and health as a whole. To me, anxiety, it is an experience that the body has in response to an emotional experience. It is trapped energy. It is potentially someone else's energy that then our brain decides to give a word called anxiety. I have anxiety. I have worry. I have things that I hold on to that are not mine. Where Ada and I went into deeper conversations about anxiety was with regard to transformations, those 4 arrows at the top of our graph, and talking about splenic energy. What does it mean to have an open spleen? Our fight or flight awareness center in the body. There were lots of light bulb moments for me in that episode and how to get rid of anxiety. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to, again, I'll always say it, meet you in person one day soon. And meet your little one and Sean. Kate, I'm sorry that when we first logged on, I got your name wrong. Kate is also an astrologer. Kate is also an Instagram DM bestie. Lives in Ontario. I knew we were going to vibe. We'd never spoken live in person, but I had purchased some of Kate's astrological packages before. I've watched her evolve as an entrepreneur and fearless, badass babe of a human. We talked about the crazy solar eclipse that happened in April. We talked about how does she honor her energy as an entrepreneur. through looking at human design. We talked about environment, where our body is trying to tell us where to be and where to go. We also talked about overwhelm, somewhat linked to anxiety. Even though I'm not a manifesting generator, I could see how in myself, the places of thinking about myself as an entrepreneur, the environments that I know my body is telling me to be in, and how I deal with overwhelm is so important to be looked at through our human design graph. Because it's actually going to help us better understand the strategy of what business means to me personally, as opposed to the strategy of the way that you could take a business course that says do X, Y, and Z. And this is how you make $1 million. And this is how you do X. And this is how you draw in the best clients. Blah, blah, blah. All of those things out there that tell us how to do business, in air quotes, in a successful manner are awesome. They're right. But not all of the nuggets are meant to be for me or Kate or Daria or anyone else that I've had on my podcast, regardless if they're an entrepreneur. I get so passionate about not trying to listen to anybody else except for myself these days. Thank you, Kate, for our episode. So my last episode, episode 10, Dr. Michael Lennox, also an Instagram friend, acquaintance, someone I've been following for a while. I reached out. He responded. Michael is a manifesting generator. I was super fucking nervous, Michael. I was so excited and nervous because I pre-knew all of this information about you with looking at your human design graph, by looking at your astrology chart. I knew we were going to get along because of pre-looking at this energy and knowing what things within us were the same, knowing what things may be different, but I had no idea that we might go down a rabbit hole of talking about all of my life's passions that realized in the moment that you loved CrossFit and that you were a fucking CrossFit king and still are, regardless of the fact that you're not doing it right now. Like, how the fuck does that happen? How does that happen? I don't know. Divine timing and the universe and destiny showing up at the right moment. What I talked about with Michael really made me realize I have to keep saying in the moment what is true for me. In my human design graph, I have a defined throat. If you have a colored in square, that's almost at the top of your graph. There are 3 moments at the top of a human design graph. There's an upright triangle, an upside down triangle, and then a square. That first square represents the throat chakra. If that throat chakra on your human design graph is colored in, speaking is so important to your energy. If it's white, it is also, it's just different. It's not good or bad. Nothing in our human design graph is good or bad. Please remove the context of good or bad from your language if you listen to my podcast. I'm trying to do the same because we are given the gifts from source, from energy, from why we are put here on this planet and born to be here as a human on purpose to fearlessly embody that energy. The more that I speak in the moment as a generator authentically, the more that gets drawn out of me and the things are given to me instantaneously. Manifestation in its truest form. I had no idea that Michael potentially was someone who almost ended up being on Broadway and that he should have been on Broadway. But then life and his potential destiny of where he is still even now headed now at age 60 and fucking rocking it, that then he would go down certain paths to then love CrossFit and be a badass at CrossFit. My life trajectory has been quite similar thus far. Now, yes, dance and CrossFit are 2 very heavily done things in the world these days. Maybe it's not uncommon to the potential of happening to come across somebody that then became a guest on my podcast to then talk about those things. But none of this was pre-planned. None of this was pre-realized as to how I could potentially in that moment help Michael understand just a fraction of himself a little more, even at age 60. I feel like that's another mic drop moment. We're now coming to the end of episode 11. The end of season 1 on this fearless life. This podcast has changed my life. This podcast has made me realize that I'm an expert. I truly am an expert 2 years into this thing. And I can't wait to see where it takes me next. Thank you, universe. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, every guest I've had on this podcast that has made me realize that I'm good at what I do. Because as a Leo sun, Cancer rising, Aries moon, I'm pushy to try to make happen and be seen in the way that I think I'm supposed to be seen. I'm empathetic enough because I just want to teach people all that I think that they should know about themselves. And Leo suns, if you're listening to this, you're here to be on stage. Whatever stage is calling at that moment. And right now I've got another one. Apparently you can create a really good at-home podcast, just so you know, if this is now your sign to start a podcast. Human design is here at the moment that we need it most. At the moment when CrossFit wasn't really known, CrossFit brought fitness and health to the 21st century, to humans and parents and soccer moms that maybe thought they would never understand how to lift a barbell. This is why human design is here right now, to change the health and fitness industry again in the way that CrossFit did, and to then change the entire world. My little podcast, my little voice here in this moment is to help you realize that your body is fearlessly telling you what to do. Even if you're not sure that you should start that podcast, that you should send that text, that you should turn down this corner of the street, that you should Google something for hours on end just to analyze it because you want to, that you should sleep in and not get up until 3 p.m. and then have your most productive period of the day at midnight. There are 5 different energies currently on the planet when we look at a human design body graph. In a couple years, there will be officially another energy type. Where human design is going, not even the human design readers technically know. We've been told theories and we go down rabbit holes of knowing that the new paradigm, things are changing, and yes, we're embracing it. But even we are trying to, in the moment on a day, just respond to what's in front of us, to just keep doing our passions and allow our sparkle and light to draw in the humans that we are meant to connect with next. If you're a manifester, to speak your truth and not be shy about it. If you're a projector, to just get really, really good at the things that you see how to become efficient at. Don't worry about giving your opinion because the right people are going to ask for it. Reflectors, you can take your time. That's it. You're going to go with the flow. And if people don't get your flow, then get the fuck out of there. Manifesting generators, you don't have to listen to anything I say. Just listen to the burst. Just listen to the randomness and the interesting realizations of, hey, I got good at that thing real fast. Oh. Cool. The accumulation so far of 11 episodes for me is mind-blowing. And also realizing that I was supposed to do this all along. I just decided to get out of my own way and go with it anyways. Like all of the major decisions of my life thus far. I was listening to myself as a 1-3 sacral generator. And I hope that even by the nuggets of this podcast, with whatever energy type you are, whatever profile you have, definition, You don't have to overthink it, babe. You're already fearlessly living your energy the way that you're supposed to. You're headed towards that destiny and that full moon release every 28 to 30 days of your body being, you got this. You got this. So, without any other further ado, here is a Fran frequency just for you.